right, everyone. Welcome back to Thursday Thoughts with Mike. Excited to be here this Thursday. I've been feeling really good lately, so pretty jacked up about today's topic, and it's all about fathers and fatherhood, and what that means to me, what that can mean to you, and all the fun stuff in between. Because I know a lot of people have a lot of feelings in there, and what that creates in our life, and what that shows in our life, and the way we're projecting out to people is the way we were raised, and the way we looked up to our father and this hero in our eyes, right? He is our hero. So um, I wanted to talk a little bit about what I remember of my dad. Now, bear in mind, this is through my eyes as a child. My dad passed away before I turned 20, so I never got that later in life where the parent the parent and the child kind of intersect, and then you become more friends, or more of, you can see where your parents were coming from, and you have that, right? I'm lucky enough to have that with my mom, but like I say, I never really got that with my dad. My parents were a little older as well, so I never really had that time with him, or not that I remember anyway. I never had those romantic conversations, picking his brain about different things. And I always, like I say, romantic, I romanticize it in my head of sitting down and just enjoying a time together. But I mean, between, working and farming and everything else on the go, like, I mean, really, you got to be realistic in a lot of this. But like I say, what I remember of my dad, again, this is through a child's eyes, but he's extremely hardworking. He was a proud man. He was kind. He was resourceful, like most small farmers are. And what I remember is he was a really good friend to his people, his tribe. He was a really, really good friend. And like I say, I don't know exactly what that meant or what that looked like on the other side, but from what I seen, that's what I aspire to be. I want to be that guy to my tribe. Everyone, kind of come to my dad for things. He went to them for certain things, and it was a bit back and forth, but it was a really, like, a strong community. And like I say, it's really important, and I feel like we're missing it these days. But from what I've seen, he was an extremely good friend. So like I say, I'm almost a little, I explain it to people, like, I'm kind of upset. Not upset in the fact, like, I'm not upset at somebody, just in general of, my dad hasn't got to see me be a dad. He didn't get to see all of his hard work kind of come to fruition and be like, okay, I did okay, I did good. I can see that, I raised a son that is a good father, and, I didn't get that. But at the same time, it's not a bad thing, because of all those qualities I did learn from him. But like I said, that's the only thing that I'm kind of upset about, is like, he didn't get to see me be a dad. But what I did learn from him, and what I am carrying into my own kind of fatherhood, is I want to be extremely loving. So I didn't get a lot of that. I didn't get like the old I love yous and hugs and kisses and all that kind of stuff. Again, not that I remember anyway. Could have been there. But I'm extremely loving. I tell Lennox I love him every day, about 1,000,000 times a day. Extremely caring. Protective. That's another one I should have put up with my dad. I felt safe. I don't know, it wasn't like a direct, in danger ever, but I just felt safe with the guy. I felt safe around other people. I was like, yeah, my dad is here. My dad will, make it okay. I want to be extremely understanding. And this one I talked to Lennox a lot, man, when he was a baby, and now he's almost 5. So we talk about it a lot now, but I understand where he's coming from. He doesn't have to hide anything from me. He doesn't have to, not tell me the whole truth, because I've been there. I've done that. I mean, most people watch it as, we grew up in like small towns, partying, doing crazy stuff, hitting ditches, getting vehicles, doing all kinds of who knows what, right? I don't want to say too much on here if someone else is listening, but the cops are listening. But I mean, just to understand where he come from. And like, I was a kid at one time, right? I understand. You don't have to hide these things. You don't have to, feel bad about anything, or not just to lie to me, right? I just don't want to be lied to. And I'm sure every parent feels that way. I want to be a role model for my son. So again, my dad modeled a lot of good things and a lot of good qualities that I want to take in, and I have taken into my life. But I want to be that role model for my son. I want to be that superhero in his eyes. And I want to be the superhero in my own eyes, let alone my son's, right? Stern but fair. So this one's a good one in the sense of, it's such a fine line, between being like a dictator and a complete ass, but you can't be a pushover either. And these kids, they'll as everyone knows, right? These kids will take it and they'll just roll with it and they'll play you out for sure. Hey, Willis, right on, man. Thanks, buddy. Thank you. Um, but yeah, like I said, stern but fair, because these kids will run all over you. It's like they'll sense fear, they'll sense like, oh, I can do this, and they'll just go with it. And I want to be an active father. Again, I romanticize a lot of things. I never got that by learning to ride a bike. I remember learning to ride a bike story is me going down a hill in front of my house until I was able to glide and kind of hold on to it. And then I was gliding and I was able to pedal and I was able to pedal down the lane. And I distinctly remember going to my dad because he was working on the combine. He was working on the combine in front of the garage. And I was like, Dad, I did it. I can ride a bike. And he's just like, yeah, good job. Just don't get hit. And that was it, right? Which is fine. And that was what it was. And that's okay. But I want to be the dad that's there, like, cheering him on and doing all these things. Present. So present is a one I fight with daily. And I'm sure we all do. Sitting there on the cell phone, worrying about work, worrying about bills, worrying about life. I go back to cell phone because that one is very, very prevalent in today's society, myself included. I'm not going to stand up here on this soapbox and preach, but just got to learn to put that phone down and spend time with your kids. Because I really don't want my son to look back and be like, yeah, I was competing for my dad's attention with a phone, with a computer, with a TV. That should be a non-issue. That should be a non-topic, really. And honestly, like, aside from watching these Thursday Thoughts with Mike, we're not missing a whole lot, on our phones. So, but yes, put it down, just set it aside. Everything will be there when you come back. It's not a big deal. And again, this goes back to understanding. I want to be very easily approachable and willing to listen to him. So these listening skills, that goes back to relationships. I mean, you got to learn to listen with your partner, and you got to learn to listen with your kids and be very attentive and, give them feedback and give them cues that you are actually listening and paying attention, shutting off the TV, putting your phone down, talking back to them, kind of, I can't remember the word is, but paraphrasing, like paraphrase back to make sure you understand where they're coming from, no matter what age, because whatever they're telling you is the most important thing right now. So for them. So, I mean, really take that time and listen. So now I want to turn it back on you guys. So, like, what qualities do you admire about your own father? And what are some of the lessons you learned of what not to do from your father? So I know a lot of people bang on about how great their dad was, right? But what lessons did you also learn about what not to do, or what you want to do differently? That might be a better way to say that. What you want to do differently in your own parenting styles. I know for myself, I don't know the circumstances, but I wish she didn't have to work so much. So I would have been able to spend those quality times. But at the same time, running a small farm, doing all these other things, I could have took some initiative in that too. But I mean, that's not fair to a kid. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword on that one. But again, get in the comments. If you're watching the replay, tell me in the replay what lessons you really learned not to do from your father and what you really admire from him. And this is another question, kind of food for thought, is like, where are we going wrong in today's world with the men we're raising? So I mean, daughters, that's a whole nother subject, but this one I want to focus more on men and what are we doing that's kind of creating these men that we are? They seem very unattached, unmotivated, just quite timid, to be honest. There's so many things that, like, what are we doing with raising these men and where are we going wrong? At least, what are your thoughts? I'd like to get a list of thoughts on people, and we can just kind of see, and everything will start to line up. There'll be commonalities amongst everybody, and that'll be the key issues that we really got to hone in on and figure out. Another one, if you're up for it, like, what are the issues that teenagers and young men face in today's world? So here I am harping on, like, what are we doing wrong with them? But what issues are they facing nowadays? Right? It's not like they can just go in a fight or not get in a fight, but like solve their issues out in the parking lot kind of thing, right? Like, it doesn't exist anymore, that world. Now they won't even talk. Well, from what I hear, I guess I'm not in that world, but like people will just go and not really talk and not solve anything, but then they'll go home and then they'll go on online and bully the hell out of you, right? And like, where's that? As a young, like as a man, you don't get to face that person. Yeah, people are strong behind a keyboard and whatever else, but they won't actually get to face them. And that's the problem. I think a big problem with a lot of guys today is they just don't know they don't know what it's like to get punched in the face, for one. And a lot of the people that are so disrespectful in the things they say to people on, through messages and comments and that kind of stuff, they don't have to face those repercussions of, you can't say that stuff in front of somebody and not get punched in the face. So it's a really cowardice way of facing a lot of problems in today's world, right? But again, these young men, they got video games, they got apps coming out of their wazoo. Like I just said, online bullying, I couldn't even fathom what that would feel like, because there's nothing you can do about it. Dating issues, which goes to, the men that we're raising and the problems that they're kind of having in some of the issues, on top of some of the girls that are, their ideas, right? And their ideals just aren't lining up with anything. A lot of these guys have lack of ambition. They're really not responsible for much, so they don't have very much responsibility. And there's no one holding these young men accountable, in my experience. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but there needs to be a real sense of accountability. I just seen it from the work side, right? Because I was blue collar. I came from, I was a carpenter and site supervisor and a project manager on these big projects. But then you get these young guys coming to your job site, and they don't know anything, for one, which is fair. That's fine. We can work with that. But they'll lie. They won't be accountable. They'll do things so they don't feel like they're getting in trouble for it. And then just learn to not work or not get things done, or they'll blame other people, which for me on the job site is like the worst thing, right? Don't blame other people, make it better, fix it. Don't worry about blaming anybody. But again, those are some of the things that I see. I just want to know what you guys are seeing out there. And then back to now, that was teenagers, now to men. Like, what's holding men back now from being the fathers that they want to be? So I touched on a little bit about distractions, right? So games, video games, Xbox, PlayStation, all those kind of things. Porn is a really big one, right? Like, it's not like back in the day where, you'd have your one porno mag and that was kind of what you had, right? Now it's, you go online, you go on your phone, you can do anything. You have, the world is a plethora of whatever. And it's screwing up a lot of people. It's not just a distraction. It's working its way into relationships. It's working its way into, men are having like erectile dysfunction because they can't get it up unless they're watching porn, and there's just so many things that are wrong with that. I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I'm not saying that it's inherently wrong, but it's just, we have to make sure that things are under control and used properly, right? And then again, apps like the ones you're watching on here. I mean, we just get so consumed in this stuff, and time just flies, right? Like, you're looking at your phone and 2 hours later, it's like, whoa, what just happened? So is that holding us back from being the father we want to be? I know I'm always like, well, I don't have enough time. I don't have time to play with you. I'll play with you in a little bit. But then you sit there and half hour will go by on your phone. You're like, oh shit, that half hour could have went to my son, could have went to my daughter. So that's what we got to be very, very, very conscious of. Fear is another big one. Fear in the world right now. There's so much stuff going on, right? Which can just paralyze a lot of people if they're not willing to hit it head on. Anxiety, I know that one better than most. Stress. Again, you're bringing in work stress, and then you're stressing about the home life. I was stressing about not spending time with my kid because I was stressing, which makes no sense. But it's this cycle that we get in, right? So we got to break that cycle, break that pattern. Unsupportive partners. So again, that's another big one. A lot of men face this. It's, you want to be that father, but you have an unsupportive partner where it feels like you're doing everything. And I know women, and trust me, I know you're going to say the exact same thing, but that is a big one. Job pressures, which goes back to stress, and this is probably the biggest one I've seen in talking to people is there's not a lot of male role models in their life. A lot of people grew up with, single moms, which is tough. They're doing what they can to keep food on the table and keep a roof on their head and keep their kids warm. They don't have the time to really try to instill any kind of values, but they don't know how to do it. Like, they don't know how to instill any kind of masculine male values, right? So it's really tough. A lot of single moms are just, it's a really hard world, and I feel for you. It's really hard. So they just don't have that male role model in their life, or they just don't have mentors in their life. So again, with finding mentors, finding men's groups, finding people that have been there. There's so many options out there nowadays. You know, like I said, men's groups, coaches, mentors, finding YouTube videos that you can just get lost in, reading books. Really got to take accountability in your own life and really reach in and want to do these things. Because if you just keep the status quo, time will just keep flowing by, and nothing will change, but your kids will get older. And as they get older, then you'll want to spend more time with them, and you'll try to talk with them, but your kids won't want to talk to you because you didn't have time for them when they were younger. So why would they want to make time for you now? They'll just go with their friends. They'll go with their peer groups, right? And this is another big one that I've seen and I've lived. It's just so much unresolved trauma. So as soon as we figure out that trauma and kind of hit it head on, you know, we won't be pushing it down with porn, with distractions, with alcohol. That was my Achilles tendon, or heel, I guess would be, right? You know, I would just stuff all my feelings away with that. A lot of men, myself included, would shut down. We just wouldn't say, we really wouldn't do much, right? Yeah, there was no real fighting or screaming or yelling in the house, but that didn't do anything. It just let all these problems fester, and then it would blow up. Or, you know, it would blow up. It would look like I would just go get blacked out drunk for 3 days. And that didn't help anything. This was all before I had kids, thank God. And I was able to work through that trauma and work through just not necessarily trauma, but like just problems that I've seen in my life or that I was trying to hide with alcohol, right? Or mask with alcohol. And I was able to work through those. And now finally being on the backside is I can be extremely present for my son, and I can be very vulnerable for him. And that's goes so far. It's showing them all these things. So with all that, I know it's a lot to digest, but get down in the comments. Let me know. You know, let me know what you admired about your father. I want to hear some of these good traits. Let me know some of the lessons that you didn't like, that you learned from your dad that you don't want to take into your own fatherhood, or that you've been practicing not to do. Another one, if you got time, you know, what's going wrong with the men that we're raising? Where are we going wrong with that? Or what do you think we're doing wrong? And then, I mean, this is a big one. It was what's holding men back from being the fathers that they want to be. So let me know your thoughts on that. Get down in the comments. Let me know. And I will see you guys next Thursday.